One half I, 32M, have been the success story of my family for the last decade. I'm a software architect, I make mid-six figures, and I live a pretty low-key life in a modest condo. Because I don't have kids and make the big bucks, my mother and my older sister have treated my bank account like a community chest. For 5 years, I've paid my mother's mortgage and her utilities because she's on a fixed income. I've also covered my sister's emergencies, which usually look a lot like a new SUV or designer handbags, while she claims she's struggling as a single mom. The breaking point happened last Saturday at my niece's Sweet 16. My sister told me months ago she had $0 for a party and that her daughter would be socially destroyed if she didn't have a massive bash. I relented like an idiot. I spent $12,000 on a venue, catering, a DJ, and a professional photographer. I even bought my niece the designer dress she wanted. I was standing by the buffet, checking a work email, when my mother walked up to me. She didn't say thank you. She didn't even smile. She looked at the floral arrangements, curled her lip, and whispered loud enough for the nearby table to hear. "This party is cheap and embarrassing. Look at these centerpieces, they're polyester. Your sister is humiliated. We'd be better off without you and your stingy attitude. You always try to make us look poor." The room went dead quiet in my head. I looked at the $1.40, a plate salmon, and the open bar I was funding.
I didn't yell.
I simply nodded and looked her dead in the eye. "In that case," I said, "I'll stop paying your bills. If I'm such a burden and my cheapness is an embarrassment, you should be relieved to handle your own finances from now on." My mother's face went purple. She scoffed, thinking I was bluffing. "You wouldn't. You're too desperate for our approval." "Watch me," I said. I walked over to the DJ, told him he was paid through the end of the hour but not a second longer, and walked out. I went home and went nuclear. I logged into my bank portal and canceled the recurring wire transfer for my mother's mortgage. I revoked her access to the secondary credit card I gave her for groceries. I called the utility companies, which are all in my name because her credit is trashed, and scheduled a service disconnection for the end of the week. The fallout started at 2 a.m. My sister called first, screaming that I had ruined the party because the DJ stopped and the photographer left. She called me a financial abuser. She said Mom was hyperventilating because she tried to buy gas and my card was declined. I told her to sell her $60,000 car to pay for it and hung up. Then came the texts from my mother. They weren't apologies. They were demands. She sent me a link to a legal site claiming I had established a pattern of support and was legally obligated to pay her, or she could sue me for filial support. What she didn't realize is that I had been keeping records. For 5 years, I've kept every emergency text and bank statement showing this wasn't a gift, it was a series of loans. More importantly, I knew a secret she forgot. The house she lives in? It's not hers. I bought it as an investment and let her live there rent-free. I sent one final text to the group chat. "The eviction notice will be served on Monday. Since you'd be better off without me, find a place that meets your high standards." Monday morning, I went to the courthouse. Since there was no formal lease, she was a tenant at will. I paid for a sheriff to serve her a 30-day notice to quit. By noon, my sister was in my condo lobby, calling me 30 times. When I picked up, she hissed, "You're going to put a 64-year-old on the street. You're a monster. You're just jealous of our connection." "Move her into your guest room then," I said. "I don't have a guest room. I have a craft room for my business," she screamed. That told me everything I needed to know about their priorities. Tuesday, my HR department emailed me. Someone sent an anonymous tip claiming I was defrauding the company and was a security risk. It was obviously my sister trying to kill my income out of spite. Luckily, I keep my personal and professional lives totally separate. I showed my manager the eviction drama, and he actually laughed and told me to just get it settled. Then things got criminal. I have a title monitoring service for my properties. I got an alert that someone attempted to take out a $100,000 home equity line of credit, HELOC, on the house. My mother had forged my signature on a power of attorney document, claiming I was incapacitated. My sister had found a shady notary friend to stamp it without me there. I didn't call them. I called the fraud department and the police. I handed over the deed, my actual signature, and digital logs proving I was working at the office when they claimed I was signing papers. On Thursday, I drove to the house. My mother was on the porch with wine, bought with the last of her cash. My sister's SUV was in the driveway. "You're going to jail, Mom," I said from the sidewalk. She laughed. "I'm your mother. No judge is going to lock up a grandmother for trying to save her home." "It's my house," I reminded her. And the bank flagged the helic. "The notary is already talking to the cops to save her own skin. And since you mailed those forged docs, the feds might look at mail fraud too." My sister stepped out, looking smug. "Our lawyer says we can tie this up in court for years. We'll live here for free while you pay for everything. You'll go broke, trying to get rid of us." "I don't have to wait," I smiled. "I'm selling the house today to a corporate we buy houses firm. They love professional squatters. They don't use the sheriff. They use private security to sit in the driveway 24/7 and monitor the property." I took a $50,000 hit on the price just to make sure they handle the eviction aggressively. The color drained from their faces. But I had one more bomb to drop. While rerouting the mail for the house, I found a life insurance statement. My father died 3 years ago. They told me he died in debt. I paid for the funeral. I paid his medical bills. The statement showed a $500,000 payout to my mother. They had $500,000 sitting in a private account while I was paying for their electricity and my niece's socks. They were using me as a shield, so they didn't have to touch their fun money. "Where's Dad's insurance money, Mom?" I asked. The silence was deafening. "I have the policy number. You let me pay for his casket while you had $500,000. You called me cheap while sitting on a fortune. That's not entitlement. It's pure evil." I pulled out my phone and dialed the IRS whistleblower line on speaker. "If you didn't report that payout while claiming low-income subsidies and having me pay your bills, you're in a lot of trouble." The police arrived shortly after to follow up on the forgery report. My mother started wailing about a heart condition for the neighbors, but she was booked for felony forgery and grand theft. The shady notary had already confessed. The next 30 days were brutal for them. The investment firm sent property managers who parked at the end of the driveway every morning at 6 a.m. My sister tried to call CPS on me, but the social worker saw my clean condo and the police reports against my family and ended up investigating my sister's unstable home instead. By the end of the month, they were out. Mom had to use a huge chunk of that secret insurance money. 2 halves for bail and a high-end lawyer. Since no landlord would take someone with an active eviction, she had to pay a massive premium for a rental. My sister's SUV was repossessed because, without me paying her other bills, she couldn't afford the $1,200 monthly payment. I met my mother one last time at a diner. She looked small and old. "You destroyed this family," she whispered. "I hope you're happy with your piles of money. You lost your mother over a few insults." "I didn't lose a family," I said, sliding the bill for our coffees toward her. "I fired 2 employees who were embezzling from me." "Oh, and the IRS claim? It's being processed. They're very interested in that $500,000. I walked out and blocked them both. Life is quiet now. No 2 a.m. emergencies, no insults, and no lighting myself on fire to keep them warm. I learned that family is a verb. If you don't act like family, you don't get the perks. If you enjoyed seeing a cheap guy finally get his money's worth, make sure to subscribe. Unlike my family, I actually deliver on my promises. Would you like me to find another story of satisfying justice for you?